Folks, if you're staying for the meeting and you intend to vote during the meeting on the warrant, please make sure you have a wristband and a white voting card.
Test, 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 test.
No brainer. I mean, that's what.
Test, test.
Folks, if you're intending to vote on the official ballot, the polls will close promptly at 7 p.m. I would encourage you to move through the voting process as efficiently as you can. And if you're intending to stick around for the meeting, please start gravitating toward your eventual seat so that we can be as ready to go at 7 o'clock as possible. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Whoop. Folks, the polls will be closing in 2 minutes. If you're intending to vote on the official ballot, Articles 1 and 2, please proceed expeditiously through the check-in clerk. Vote your ballot, check out, place your ballot in the ballot box. We'll be closing the poll promptly at 7 p.m. We will get the counting process going on the official ballot and then open the meeting for action on the warrant as soon after 7 p.m. as possible. All right, it is now 7 p.m. I declare the polls closed for voting on Articles 1 and 2, unless you are in the queue to vote, in which case I will allow you to proceed to complete your ballot and vote. Otherwise, the polls are now closed. As soon as I am certain, and my assistant moderator, John Herbert, is certain that everyone who intends to vote has had a chance to do so, I will ask John to open the ballot box, remove the ballots, show everyone the empty ballot box, and then teams of voters, 2 from each of the 5 MV sending communities, will commence the counting process on Articles 1 and 2, and we will open the meeting for action on the remainder of the warrant. Has everyone voted who intends to and who is in line at 7 p.m.? Okay, John, I think we are all set. And I would ask you to open the ballot box, remove the ballots. Okay, John, can you hold the ballot box up to make sure everyone can see that it is empty? Thank you. And as I indicated, teams of 2 counters comprised of ballot clerks from each of the 5 sending communities will commence the ballot voting process on Articles 1 and 2. And I now declare the balance of the warrant open for action. Thank you very much for attending this evening's annual meeting of the Merrimack Valley School District. At this time, I would like to recognize Roger Maxfield, a member of the Board of Selectmen from the town of Loudoun and a veteran of the Vietnam War, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. I now would like to recognize the following students to lead us in the national anthem. Cale Clark, Nathan Bayless, Allison LaMontagne, Hannah Mason, Sierra Andrews, Ellie Andrews, and Liam Erickson.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Very nice, thank you. And at this time, as is our custom in the Merrimack Valley School District annual meeting, I would like to ask all veterans of the armed services, active, reserve, or guard, to stand and please be recognized for your service to our country. Thank you. I'll take just a moment. A few thank yous are in order. First, my assistant moderator, John Herbert, who is a member of the Board of Selectmen from the town of Salisbury and a former town moderator in Salisbury. John, thank you very much. John is presiding over the counting process right now. Our district clerk, Kristen Bean Warren, who has served very ably in this position for 5 years, 6 years? 4 years. Our deputy clerk, Chris Berry. Are you still deputy clerk, Chris? You are as of right now. Thank you. And certainly, without ado, all the supervisors and ballot clerks from the 5 sending communities who've been here participating in the voting process all day today. Thank you very much for your service. As well, I'd like to recognize Fred Reagan and his very able staff here in the Merrimack Valley School District for setup of the meeting, and the kitchen staff for making sure all of the election officials were well fed today. Thank you. Okay, I'll just take a minute to summarize, as I often do, the official rules of the meeting. I'm not going to read them. On your way in, if you chose to, you would have picked up a copy of the rules of the meeting. It's a kind of a slightly off-white, two-sided piece of paper. And I'll just very briefly summarize the rules. The meeting will be conducted according to the written summary of procedures. Generally, it is my practice to read the articles before deliberation. I will accept a motion to dispense with reading of the articles to expedite the meeting. Is there anyone who would wish to make that motion? And to be clear, I do not mind reading the articles, but I will recognize that motion. I heard someone make the motion. Is there a second to the motion? It's been sufficiently seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to dispense with reading of the articles? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. And the ayes have it, and we will dispense with the reading of the articles. However, as I introduce each article, I will summarize the title of the article. If you wish to speak, please do so at the microphone. There are 2 mics on the floor, one at each corner of the floor section here. Does everyone see where they are? I will not recognize comments or motions from the floor except for a point of order. Please state your name and town before you speak. Do so clearly so that the recording clerk of the meeting can properly recognize and record your name. Please speak slowly and loudly so that everyone in the room, including those who may have difficulty with hearing, can hear you. This room, as we all know, does not have perfect acoustics, and I just ask your indulgence for those of us who, including myself, whose hearing is not what it used to be. Thank you. If you wish to move the question, you must do so at the microphone. Anyone standing in line when a motion to move the question is in order will be allowed to speak before I will recognize that motion. Please limit comments or questions to the pending motion. If you start to stray from the motion that is pending at the time, I'll respectfully ask you to bring your question or your comment back to the pending motion. I will allow anyone to speak for a first time before I recognize someone to speak for a second time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Now, I'm not up here with a stopwatch, but try to be succinct and to the point with your remarks. Unless you are the one introducing the article, and for the most part that is members of the school board. Please try not to repeat what has been already said, but strive to add new information or perspective in your comments. All voting this year will be by voice vote unless a paper ballot is requested. If, in my judgment, the majority is not clear by a voice vote, I will move to a standing count of cards. Does everyone have a white voting card? Don't lose it. You may need it. I will move to a standing count of cards. Ballot clerks will assist with the counting by sections. We'll call this part of the bleachers, this side of the rail, section 1, that part, section 2, the floor, section 3, that part of the bleachers to the left of the rail, section 4, and the far part of the bleachers, section 5. And we'll proceed in that order with counting once we have if we require a standing show of cards. In conducting a paper ballot voting pursuant to RSA 40:4-A, I will recognize a request for a secret ballot if requested by 5 voters present at the meeting in writing prior to a voice vote. If you wish to request a secret ballot, please approach the microphone and, when recognized, make the request and then submit names of petitioners to me in writing, hopefully legible. I will ask the petitioners to please stand as I read their names so that I can verify their attendance at the meeting. If we have ballot votes, voting will proceed by section. Again, section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Voting will proceed by section with the ushers directing when each section may vote. First ballot vote, you receive a colored ballot at the entry to the voting area, which will be over there. So instead of, in the past, we've handed you out little packets of colored ballots. We're not doing that this year. We'll have a colored ballot for secret ballot number 1, and we'll have a different color for any subsequent secret ballot, paper ballot request. And we'll hand those out as you enter. All you have to do is show your wristband, because we've already verified your status as a voter. Just show the wristband, grab your ballot. You can proceed to one of the tabletops or the closed voting booths. Check yes or no. They're all yes or no. It's one or the other. And then proceed to place your paper ballot in the ballot box, and John will assist me with that process. Let's see. This is to keep the process here and around the voting booths as orderly and as efficient as possible. A ruling of the moderator can be overturned by the meeting by majority vote. Simple majority vote. If you don't like something that I did or a decision that I made, you can overturn that decision by a simple majority. Any action on an article may be reconsidered later in the meeting unless reconsideration is restricted pursuant to RSA 40:10. If reconsideration is restricted, a motion may still be made to reconsider, but reconsideration can only occur at a duly warned meeting at least 7 days later. And I just want to acknowledge how respectful and polite and civil everyone at this meeting has been for as long back as I can remember, and I have every confidence and expectation that the tradition of this meeting as a civil and respectful and polite public deliberation will continue. Thank you. Are there any questions about the rules of procedure? Yes. Oh, yeah, the board gets to vote too. We'll make you group 6. How's that? So you vote at the very end. Thank you, and my apologies for forgetting about the people behind me. Okay, good question. Any other questions on the rules of procedure? If not, can I have a motion to accept these as the official rules of procedure for the meeting? It's been moved by Marv Schoonmaker. Is there a second? Seconded by Katie Phelps. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And these are the official rules of the meeting. Okay, thank you for your indulgence. At this time, I'd like to recognize School Board Chair Celie Longnecker for introductions and recognitions.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Starting at my right, I will introduce the people at the front table here. Jim O'Shaughnessy is our attorney. Randy Wormald, superintendent. Catherine Masterson, assistant superintendent. Tracy Brickey from Pennacook. Sally Hirsch Dickinson from Pennacook. Jessica Wheeler-Russell, at-large representative, Laura Vincent from Loudon, Owen Harrington from Boscawen. At the far table, Hillary Denoncourt, business administrator, Kathleen Boucher, human resources manager, and Fred Reagan, facilities director. At the front table, Peggy Jones Blanchard from Salisbury, Melissa Muzzy from Webster, Lauren Martin from Boscawen, Dan York from Loudon, and Eric Hansen from Webster. That's it.
Okay, anything else, Celie? Tracy?
Yes, I'd like to take a moment to thank our chair, Celie Longnecker, for her service, as this will be her last meeting. Celie has served as a board member since 2013. In addition to chair, Celie has been a member of the Long Range Planning and Community Relations, Policy, Student Ethics, Curriculum, Negotiations, and Finance Committees. The board appreciates the dedication and commitment to the Merrimack Valley School District and its community. Please join me in thanking her wholeheartedly for her service and wishing her all the best.
If there are no other comments from the head of the room, we will proceed with action on the warrant. And given that the results of voting on Articles 1 and 2 are still being tabulated, we will obviously pass over announcing those results until such time as they are certified by our system moderator and made available to me. We will now proceed to Article 3. Article 3 is the operating budget for the 24-25 calendar year. Do I have a motion on Article 3? It's been moved. Is there a second to the motion? It's been seconded. Article 3 is open to discussion, debate, and amendment. Before, however, we do that, I will recognize Tracy Bricky for a presentation on Article 3 and the operating budget.
Article 3 states to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $48,298,106. Thank you. For the support of schools, the salaries of school district officials and agents, and for the payment of statutory obligations of said district. This article does not include appropriations voted in other warrant articles. The board recommends this article. In an effort to more succinctly and effectively review the proposed budget, we've listened to constituent feedback. Rather than addressing every single line in the budget, tonight we'll be discussing major budget influences and looking at projected expenses and changes from this year's budget by reviewing each function and providing relevant context. There will be time for questions at the end of this presentation. The overall increase to the proposed operating budget is $2,960,282, which represents a 5.91% increase. Comparing some of the main drivers to the overall net increase gives additional perspectives to consider. The projected special education expenses are increasing by $1,432,276. If you compare this projected increase to the overall net increase, special education expenses are 53.1% of the overall net increase. The guaranteed maximum rate, or the GMR, increase provided by our nonprofit public risk benefits provider for health and dental coverage was 21.8%, or $770,933. Which represents 28.6% of the total increase. The net increase of previously approved collectively bargained agreements of $362,519 represents 13.4% of the total increase. The percent increase of the operating budget compared to last year's total approved budget is 5.91%. The three areas of increase that I previously mentioned account for 95.1% of the overall increase. The major areas of net decrease, that's the good news, that helped offset the overall increase fall into two categories. Health and dental decreases based on longitudinal data totaled $159,949. The movement of the Director of Student Services and Administrative Assistant to the SAU level positions resulted in a decrease of $104,029. Without the reductions noted, as well as a few smaller decreases, the percent increase would have been 6.49%. The board and administration are consistently evaluating and monitoring longitudinal expenses. This practice resulted in the board and administration being able to decrease these functions by a total of $264,007. You can follow along on the overview, on your overview sheets, with the 24-25 proposed budget. Function 1100, regular education, on page 5. We see an overall increase of $549,740 due primarily to the aforementioned health and dental increases, as well as separation pay for retiring teachers. Function 1210, special education, also on page 5. This function has an increase of $799,345. We see a significant increase to the tuition lines and the health and dental increases. These increases are based on changing student needs and are based on what we know about the student population at this time. Function 1211, the extended school year, special education, page 5. The increase in this function is $14,892. This is due to an increase in tuition costs. Function 1290, other special programs, also on page 5. The increase of $27,092 is due to the guaranteed maximum rate to health and dental. Function 1420, the athletic programs, on page 6. Overall, this function is increasing $82,375. The increase is due to the following factors: the GMR for health and dental, moving the athletic trainer from a contracted position to employee, dues increase, and the cost for coaching and referee fees. Function 2110, School Resource Officer, on page 6. The increase is $15,978, is due to an increase in salary and benefits for the 2 school resource officers. Function 2120, School Counseling Services, on page 6. There's an increase of $51,590 due to the movement of the system of care position from primarily grant-funded to district-funded, as well as the health and dental increases. Function 2140, Special Education Services Psychologist, on page 6. We see an increase there of $20,996. The increase in this line is due to increasing costs of contracted services as well as health and dental increases. Function 2149, Special Education Services Behavioral, excuse me. The function sees an increase of $139,561. The increase in this line is due to increasing costs of contracted services as well as health and dental increases. Function 2150, Special Education Services Speech, on page 7. This function sees an increase of $48,432. We see an increase in this line due to increasing costs of contracted services as well as the health and dental increases. 2153, Special Education Services Hearing and Vision, page 7. The function sees an increase of $30,429 due to the increasing costs of contracted services based on our current student needs. Function 2162, Special Education Services Physical Therapy. The function sees an increase of $16,400. We see an increase in this line due to increasing costs of contracted services. Function 2163, Special Education Services Occupational Therapy, on page 7. This function sees an increase of $50,389. This increase is due to increasing costs of contracted services based on our current student needs, as well as health and dental increases. Function 2225, Technology Services, on page 8. There's an increase of $32,800. That's primarily due to increased licensing fees, as well as health and dental increases. Function 2311, School Board Services, also on page 8. The increase is $1,310. That is due to an increase in the liability insurance premium. Function 2313, Treasurer Services, on page 8. The increase of $1,200 in this function is due to an increase in the fraud protection bank fees. Function 2321, the SAU, excuse me. The SAU assessment on page 8 sees an increase of $290,526. This is the SAU budget apportioned out to the 2 districts within SAU 46. This increase is due to updated proration and preparing for separations. The SAU has seen 3 long-term employees retire in the last few years. There are also several current employees that would be eligible for separation pay if they decided to retire at any point. This budget helps to build the foundation to prepare for that. Additionally, the movement of the Director of Student Services and Administrative Assistant to the SAU level position contributes to the increase. But you will see that corresponding decrease in function 2190. Function 2410, Office of the Principals, on page 9. sees an increase of $43,037. This increase is a result of the health and dental increase, copier contracts, and a dues increase. Function 2620, operations and maintenance on page 9. The overall increase there is $88,315. The increase is due to health and dental rates, as well as an increase to the repairs and maintenance line. Function 2720, transportation on page 9. The increase there is $23,430 due to the health and dental increases. Function 2721, transportation regular ed on page 9. The increase there is $48,529. It's due to the increased cost of vehicle insurance as well as health and dental increases. Function 2722, transportation special ed.
Can you, yeah, we don't have that detail in our packet.
Which one?
The sub accounts under 2700.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Do you want me to repeat that again so you can write it down? Okay.
Just to be clear, Tracy, so you're breaking down
2720.
2700 into more detail, correct?
Yes, 2700. I'm breaking down 2720 is transportation. The increase there was $23,433. 2721, the increase was $48,529, and that's regular ed transportation. And then 2722, special ed transportation, the increase there is $192,168. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. 2900, on page 9, function 2900, is where the previously approved collective bargaining agreements are budgeted, and the total increase for that function is $316,695. $316,695. Then functions 4200, site improvement, and 4600, building improvement. The increase in those is $25,000 and $50,000 respectively, and the changes are based on longitudinal and expected expenses. There are a few areas where there are some net decreases. The small decreases due to workers' compensation are in 1260, the ELL programs, 1410, curricular, 2210, the mentor program, 2212, curriculum development, 2723, transportation CTE, and 2725, transportation field trips. Function 2130, the school nurse services on page 6. There's a decrease there of $50,038, and that's due to longitudinal data in health and dental usage. Function 2190, other support on page 7. The decrease there is $104,029, and that's the decrease that is due to the moving of the Director of Student Services and the Admin Assistant to the SAU budget. Function 2222, library services, which are on pages 7 and 8. The overall decrease there is $87,269, and that's based on longitudinal data in health and dental usage. In function 2319, other school board services, that's on page 8. And there's a $22,642 decrease, and that is based on longitudinal data in health and dental usage. If you want to look at the revenue page now, at the end there,
Is this page 11, Tracy?
yeah, yes, I believe so. I don't have that page on my, yes, it's not written on my, I'm sorry, that's my fault. Page 11, revenue. They continue to fluctuate year after year. This year, we see an increase of $1,247,614 in our adequacy funding due to a change in legislation. We do anticipate a reduction in the local sources other than taxes of $126,880 and $13,950 less in the unassigned fund balance. We estimate the net overall impact to be an increase of $1,589,120. As always, district administrators and officials continue to advocate for revenues when legislation is brought forward at the State House. Please let your voices be heard by your representatives in Concord as well. I now respectfully open the floor to comments so the board may hear from the public. Thank you.
Questions or comments on Article 3?
Excuse me, Charlie. If I could, on page 4, there is actually all the increases. So there, it is broken down, 2720 for transportation, 2721 for transportation regular ed, and 2722 transportation for special ed. So if you didn't get a chance to write them down or you think you might have missed a number, those are in there for you. Thank you.
Questions or comments on Article 3? A question or comment?
Jacob Martin, Bosquen. I'd like to request a secret ballot.
On Article 3 as introduced?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you proceed to the podium here with your list, and I'm going to open Article 3 to discussion, debate, and potential amendment, and at the appropriate time, I will recognize your request for a secret ballot. Thank you. I recognize David Hemingway.
David Hemingway, Webster. I want to quickly touch on the revenue side and your unreserved fund balance. You have this being shown as a revenue, but a couple quick questions about the unreserved fund balance itself and the direction of that. First, with the decrease that's being used, what is the current unreserved fund balance and what is your target to keep within that balance?
We expect that this year's fund balance will be around $500,000 again.
So remaining in the balance or used as revenue?
It's not used as revenue, it's returned to the taxpayers when tax rate setting happens.
Okay,
so it reduces that.
So you're expecting to use $500,000 to offset the tax rate?
Correct.
And so what is actually in the fund and what is your target for that?
There isn't a fund that we keep. That money offsets the tax rate when we do tax setting.
Okay. Not quite the same way that we deal with it in the town then, but that's okay. The follow-up question to that is further you have a warrant article for $150,000 to come from the unreserved fund balance to fund another fund. Is that $150,000 included in this 500, or is this 500 only for the offset of taxes?
The $150,000 would come from the unassigned fund balance prior to that $500,000 being returned.
Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 3? Yes.
I don't know if this is on. Therese Baster, Ashton Loudon. Couple of quick questions, and it's just me trying to understand more than anything else. But the hearing and vision services of the $304,000, I worked as a time as a school nurse, and we would do the screening, vision, and hearing for our special ed children. which would take about 5 minutes, but I don't understand, is this an employee salary? What exactly is this $304,000 paying for?
And I would ask any staff who respond to questions to please identify yourself. Thank you.
Take this off. I'm Julie Gaudette, Special Ed
Thank you.
Administrator at the Merrimack Valley Middle School. The hearing and vision increase is due to services for some of those students. So it's not just the screening procedures, it's delivering direct services to students.
So that would be, the service would be,
Staff.
so a para or
No.
like a speech therapist, which would be separate, but
We have
under speech.
teachers for the hearing impaired and vision impaired.
Okay, so
that
it would
we
be separate
contract
staff.
with. Yes, we contract with them.
And how many children do we have that require either hearing impairment or by braille or vision education in the school district?
I don't have a number with me right now, but I can look into that for you.
Okay. And then my other question is, how many children district-wide are part of Loudon? Do we have that number? Out of the 2215, I couldn't back into how many were actual Loudon residents.
Are you asking how many are identified students?
Out of the school district, approximately, it doesn't have to be exact. Of course, we know what's at the Loudon Elementary School, but trying to get our arms around how many Loudon residents are in the Merrimack Valley School District. We weren't able to pick that out of the website.
Randy?
And that can be something someone can get back to us later. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I'll
back
try to
into
pull it up,
things.
but if not, I'll get back to you, Therese.
Okay, appreciate that. And then Tuesday, Candidates Night, it came to my attention for the first time. I guess it's something that was brought up in years past, but if we could get an update on the Andover contract. I know there's some privacy issues there, but it sounds like there's $2 million that should have been invoiced, that wasn't invoiced, that legally now we can't invoice, but that we've lost a significant amount of tuition income as a result of that. And I want to understand whose responsibility that was to make sure that billing was appropriate, and where we're at now with that and how that's going to be remedied going forward.
Would you like to?
Article 3.
Excuse me?
That's not an Article 3 question.
I just feel it has to do with the budget, because obviously if we're increasing the budget by $2.6 million, and what we're hearing is there's about a $2 million loss within the tuition invoicing, Loudon pays a significant higher amount than any of the other towns, and here we're picking up more money now as taxpayer and property taxpayers. So we want to really understand how this money is being managed, who's overseeing it, and how can we get to the details of it to help be good stewards of our taxpayer money.
Therese, point taken. I think if you would like, under Article 7, which is any other business which may legally come before the meeting, if you would like to discuss that issue further, it's not exactly germane to the adoption of the operating budget in this fiscal, for the ensuing fiscal year.
I think a lot of us that showed up to vote tonight are hoping that if that's being remedied, maybe we don't have to do a full 2.6 million increase on our taxes. So, but if we're not able to get those answers, we've been trying to get those answers. It sounds like it's been not a lot of transparency with all of this. So it's making a lot of us very uneasy with what's happening with the $48 million projected here for the 2,200 students.
Okay, point taken. Any comment from the board or staff on that question? If not, I'll entertain further questions or comments on Article 3. And I'll recognize William Hines.
Thank you, Charlie. It's going to be a follow-on to that particular question. Are you telling us that what's on the revenue page is not up for debate here tonight?
I believe it's up for debate. It's certainly up for discussion. I would ask if you have a specific question of the board that's pertinent to that issue or any other issue related to revenue or expense as it pertains to the operating budget, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. First off, I'm going to speak about what's on page 17, and I'm going to try to read so that I stay on track here this year, don't get cut off. I'd like to point out there should be another section showing the Andover revenue for the ensuing year, page 17 of the annual report. I commented on this to Randy on January 14th, and I appreciate him taking my comments on that. And I failed to really step back and take a good look at what I was looking at and get the big picture. I think it's good to show this year's actuals to date, but since we are working on a budget for next year, I really think that we should show a pro forma for next year, including a rate calculation and student count adding up to the number that we include on the revenue sheet. So that's really just a comment that I'm offering to the board and the SAU. I'm going to follow that up with a question and ask Hillary if she could tell me what that revenue number, that tuition revenue number, is made up of this year. And I'll be a little bit more specific. I guess I'd like just generalities, what's in there, and then I'd like to know what the rate is for Andover for the ensuing year, please.
So currently, Andover is being charged $15,000 per student for this year. They have approximately 68 students. I think that is what you're asking, Bill.
Yeah, but I'm looking for the ensuing year.
Yep.
The revenue page, please.
Sure. So for next year, under revenue, you can see that there's $1.2 million budgeted under tuition. That includes Andover revenue of $1,134,120. The rate for Andover next year will be 90% of the high school rate, which is $16,155.47 per student. So the Andover rate next year will be $14,540 per student.
Okay, thank you, Hillary. My direct question is, why are we not using the number that we were shown last year, or why are we not calculating based upon on the contract?
Next year is the first year of the new contract.
Yes.
Which states we charge Andover 90% of the last year's high school rate, based on the DOE 25 that's submitted to the Department of Ed.
Right, so if I go onto the Department of Ed website and I scroll down to Merrimack Valley on the DOE 25, I come up with a number that is not the same as what you're charging. I come up with $16,908.82, and if I take 90% of that, I come to $15,217. So that's not the number you just said. You said 14,537 or 9, I believe.
Correct. As I've said before, when we did the negotiations with Andover and Merrimack Valley, the rate that the committee intended to use was the rate that was on the DOE that is submitted by Merrimack Valley.
So then, how do you explain then that when David Hemingway asked last year for Mark to do the calculation, he went to the DOE 25 on the website number and calculated 90% of it? And it's not the same number. You're not using the same number. There is only one number that comes out of the DOE 25 on the state website.
I can address that. So when I took over as superintendent, I inherited the 15th year of a 15-year tuition agreement. And looking forward to the new agreement, I promised you last year, as I was getting ready to step into this role, that I would go to the letter of the contract. And the letter of the contract said the cost per student from the DOE 25. When we submit the DOE 25, it has a cost per student. When the Department of Ed does their calculation, they look at some other things that get added to that, and it becomes the adjusted cost per pupil. In the contract, it says the cost per pupil, and that's the number that we're going by, and not the adjusted cost per pupil.
Thank you, Randy, but wouldn't have Mark known that, and why didn't he choose that number? And I would go on, as I said, it's the number on the website, and it's appropriate that we use the adjusted number because the adjusted number is the state adjusted number to make up for some subtractions that they do. The particular item that they subtract, I can get into detail, I don't really want to, but is CRTC. They deduct a number that's in that final number, and to bring the numerator and the denominator into balance, some students need to be deducted, and that's the adjustment that they do. Andover students, I'm pretty sure, partake of our CRTC benefits. So that's, I disagree, and your words don't work. If you read the tuition agreement rate, it says MVHS per pupil cost. That's the heading of the whole section of the end of that document. And quite frankly, it's cost per pupil everywhere else. So the words, the specific words that you're drilling in on don't even work.
If you look at the calculation, Bill, in that section, it does say the cost per pupil. If it said adjusted cost per pupil, that would be the number that we would be looking at. If we pulled the DOE 25 form down, there are two different sections. One of them says cost per pupil, and the other says adjusted cost per pupil. I said I'd go to the letter of the contract. The contract states cost per pupil. That's the number that we use for the calculation.
The contract says per pupil cost, and you are engineering. I mean, I feel like deja vu all over again, that you're finding a way to give them discounts that they do not deserve. Mark clearly set the basis last year when he said and used the appropriate number. And so let me just go into some,
Well, Bill, hold on a second. The pending motion is the adoption of Article 3 as introduced. Are you leading to a potential amendment to the budget as proposed, or are you looking to flesh out further or better understanding of a revenue aspect of the operating budget, or to the extent that it influences the operating budget in future years? If it's the latter, I would ask that you hold off on your comments until Article 7 so that we can proceed with any specific deliberation or discussion on Article 3 as introduced.
Yes, Charlie, I'll hold. I'm hoping that I've imparted on my peers here that, that this just isn't fair and it isn't right, and quite frankly, the argument that's being made is not correct. I just want to throw a few numbers out, and then I will sit down and we'll let other people
proceed.
speak. So just to look at some empirical numbers to inform my peers in the room about what other people are paying, and this is, all three of these numbers are numbers that I've read in the Monitor recently. Deerfield to Concord, $18,600. Dunbarton to Bow, $18,800. Croydon to Newport, $17,000 a student. You can draw your own conclusions. Thank you, Charlie, for being patient with me.
Thank you, Bill. Further question or comment? Yes.
Just my name and my phone. Hi, Amy Doolin, Loudon, New Hampshire. I just want to briefly talk about 2153. So comments were made about the special education services for hearing and vision. And we are going to talk a lot about numbers and statistics here tonight, but I want to humanize it for the people in the room. My son, Alexander, is a 7th grader here at Merrimack Valley Middle School. We moved here 7 years ago. And one of the reasons that we picked this community was because when my son was 4 years old, he was diagnosed with severe hearing loss in both of his ears. And our district has the resources that are needed for him in his classroom. He is an honor student. He is thriving here because of those services. And those are services that are not offered in a lot of the districts around here. And so for us to have an actual teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing has not only educated my son, but also his teachers. And I am a teacher myself, so I understand how important it is for teachers to understand hearing loss. And so he has really been able to thrive, and it would be very disappointing if those services were cut and he no longer had the things that he needed here. So, thank you.
Okay, please withhold applause. Thank you. Further question or comment on Article 3?
Julie Nad Webster, just a procedure question since we're doing a secret ballot. What happens if we fail to pass the budget?
We can't leave here until we pass a budget.
I'll adjourn the
So
meeting.
if it's defeated, a motion can be made to adopt the budget as amended, as subsequently amended. It can be reintroduced for further vote as introduced. But as you recall, this happened last year, and we didn't leave until, I'm sorry, that was the town of Boscawen.
Yes. I was like,
I'm moderator in Boscawen. I get my meetings mixed up. No, we don't leave until we have an operating budget.
So if we say no on the ballot, we have to come up with a number.
It's open to further consideration, and a motion can be made to reintroduce the operating budget with amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Further question or comment?
Lisa Laughlin from Loudon, and I'm going to follow on to the previous comment about special education, and I'm going to extrapolate that into that child's future. I kind of am a bit of a broken record because I have said this before. Both of my children went through this school district on IEPs. Both have graduated. Both are working full-time. One is a nurse in Boston and one for Market Basket. Both are contributing to the tax base. Both are buying into the economy. One just bought a car. My point is, you can pay for it now, or you can pay for it later. I know people with the same condition that we have and the relative same visual acuities and capabilities who did not have access to the services that my children had access to, and they are collecting Social Security disability. Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 3? Yes.
Alicia Kingsbury, Loudon. I'd like to add to that and say that I don't think there's a single person here that doesn't want the best for every single kid, including special needs. I'm fortunate enough that I haven't had to be on that side of things, but for the rest of us whose kids are, 20 to 30 percentile the aptitude rate for testing and whatnot, it's disgusting and scary, and all we want for our kids for what we're paying is to get the same level of education that is helping the special needs parents to excel their children. So I think we want the same thing. To revisit the Andover tuition for clarification, because it is making a difference in how I vote on the budget, is the SAU acknowledging that there was an underbilling from the previous contract, what the contract stated and what was actually charged that did lead to a shortage of about $2 million? Yeah, it's really just a yes or no. I'm not looking to get into all the details.
This contract takes place starting July 1st.
No, the previous one.
That's not what we're voting on tonight. We're voting on 24-25.
I understand that, and it plays into how I want to approve the budget going forward. Because it would seem to me if we need an additional $2 million and we had that $2 million, that we might not be voting on the same number today. And so if we don't want to discuss that, what's the process in amending the budget to reduce it by $2 million?
Charlie, I can try to help.
Okay,
I
go
think
ahead.
we talked about this last year to some degree. In prior years.
Who are you?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Jim O'Shaughnessy, attorney for the school district. I've been here for a lot of years. Good to see everybody. This is loud. So in the prior 15 years, at some point, the board reduced the amount that it charged Andover as a per pupil tuition rate. The contract is a tuition contract. It's between the boards, and at some point, the Merrimack Valley Board charged a different rate than was in the contract, and they proceeded to charge that rate until this year. This is the last year that rate is being charged. Moving forward, there's a different rate in the contract, and the board has, and the superintendent has said they will live by the letter of that contract and what the understanding between the parties is with respect to what the per pupil cost will be. I think that answers your question. There is no $2 million revenue shortage. It was never calculated as revenue. It's the amount that the board charged Andover tuition.
Okay, so not a shortage, but according to what you just said, there was a reduction in tuition that was made by the school board?
In prior years, the Andover Board charged a lesser tuition per pupil rate than was set forth in the letter of the contract.
Okay, and so,
Merrimack Valley Board.
Yeah, Merrimack Valley. Which
Yep.
one did I say? Sorry.
and so as their attorney, who foots the liability of not following the contract for taxpayers?
There is no liability for not following a contract. The parties to the contract are the Andover School Board and the Merrimack Valley School Board. They're the only parties to the agreement, so there's no
The
liability.
ironic part of that is there are emails from the former chair and other board members who knew nothing about this arrangement.
Further question or comment on Article 3? Yes.
Mike Jetty Webster. So Jim, I do respectfully disagree because I don't think the board as a whole ever voted to not enforce the contract. I think it wasn't executed correctly, but I take exception to an allegation that the board made that decision. I don't believe that occurred, and I think there's evidence that it didn't occur. And I also, just for everybody in the room, Bill Hines has been an advocate for over a decade on this issue, and he has done nothing but to advocate for fairness. And it's really, I said this at the hearing, I'm going to say it again tonight. Everybody here needs to understand what he's asking for is that the Andover residents pay the amount it costs to educate an Andover student in this building. That's all he's asking. Because when they don't, when they pay less, we pay for it. We make up the difference. It's that simple. It's simple math, people. And so Bill is saying if it costs, and you can look at whatever number you want, adjusted or not adjusted, it's over $16,000 to educate a kid at Merrimack Valley. Andover is paying $15,000. That means we are all paying $1,000. And he's saying they should pay the full 16. It's that simple. And the idea that we're going to calculate or negotiate a new contract and say, well, you'll only pay 90% of last year's amount doesn't make sense. I get that you did it, but fairness is what people are asking for on this. And it's unfortunate that we can't just call it what it is, and then let alone all the past things with whether it was billed correctly, et cetera. You know, I applaud Bill because he's been saying the same thing for over a decade, and he just wants fairness. So thank you, Bill, for continuing to keep an eye on it.
Further question or comment on Article 3? Yes.
Hi, Amy Doolin, Loudon, New Hampshire. I just wanted to make a couple.
You're speaking for a second time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on Article 3 for a first time? Go ahead.
Hi, I just want to make a couple of clarifications. So special education and what my son goes through with hearing impairment are actually separate things. It's a 504 accommodation, so those are distinct things. And also, I would like to let everybody know that when it comes to test scores and student achievement, the #1 contributor is parental involvement and home. So it needs to be a collaboration, and it can't solely be the responsibility of the schools. So, thank you.
Thank you. Further question or comment on Article 3? David, for a second time. Anyone else for a first time? Proceed.
Yeah, so we're talking about the budget and per pupil costs. So I wanted to quickly provide two numbers that the state has put out. The state average cost per pupil is $20,323 for this year. The Merrimack Valley School District, on that same exact form, using these same formulas, is $18,178. While I certainly appreciate that we pay the majority of our taxes to the school district, well done for keeping it lower than the state average, even though we all wish it could be lower and more effective. Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 3? Speaking for a first time?
This is Julie Gunn.
Oh, hi, Julie.
I just
Sorry.
wanted to give the number for Teresa's question about
Okay,
the
please
hearing
do.
and vision. It's a total of approximately 26 students who receive those services.
Thank you. All right. Unless there are any other questions, comments on Article 3, I will now recognize a request that was made for a secret paper ballot. It's been submitted to me with the names and addresses of 8 individuals who are residents and voters in the school district and who are present here at the meeting this evening. And they are as follows, and as I read the name, I'll ask them to please stand and remain standing. Jacob Martin, 225 Water Street. Dan Martin, 55 Tremont Street. William Hines, Jackson Street or Tremont Street, Bill? Okay, thank you. Catherine Phelps, Route 129, Loudon. Kirsten O'Brien, 3 Forest Lane, Boscawen. Kate Merrill, 18 River Road, Loudon. Cynthia Merrill, 229 Route 129, Loudon. Oh, there she is. Thank you. And Dustin Bowles, 1229 Route 129, Loudon. Okay, it only requires 5 individuals. Thank you. So I will recognize the request for a secret ballot. And at this time, I am going to open the voting for Article 3 as introduced. It's been moved and seconded. We've ended debate. At least I don't see anyone else who wishes to speak on Article 3. We will therefore open voting. I've asked David Rapaglia, who will stand at the entrance to the voting area, to hand out a colored paper ballot. David, what color are we using? Purple. It's a purple yes, no ballot. If you are in favor of Article 3 as introduced, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to Article 3, you will vote no. We'll start with Section 1 right here, and please proceed in as orderly a fashion as possible. When you get to the entrance, please show your wristband. Do you have results?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you got elected.
Okay.
Jones.
Okay.
Whoever
Yep,
that is.
yep, got it.
And
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
that's just my scribble on the
Yep.
bottom, so I knew which one.
So in another 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to have a paper ballot
Yep.
to count. But you know, some contrition might go a long way. You know what I mean by that? Basically, somebody getting up and saying, "We fucked up." You're right. You're right, Bill. We fucked up.
Maybe not for this coming year, but back to Andover and say, you know what? We're introducing.
Hold on a second. Let's proceed to Section 2, the far side of the bleachers here. Section 3, please proceed to vote. That's the floor here. Let's proceed to section 4, which is the left-hand side of the bleachers.
When you were signing checklists, I forgot to have you sign off.
Okay, thank you for catching that.
Yeah, like, oops. I was packing everything up, and Marie's like, don't forget to have them signed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, let's proceed to section 5, which is the right-hand side of the bleachers. Section 6, the head table, school board. All right, has everyone voted, or is everyone in the process of voting who wishes to on Article 3? If you got missed over or you were out of the room when the question was put, please proceed to cast your paper ballot. And it looks like we're pretty much already almost done. At which point, I will ask the system moderator, John Herbert, and our very capable counting teams to proceed to start counting the ballots. While we're waiting on the count of those ballots, I do have the results of Articles 1 and 2, and I will share those with the meeting. Has everyone voted on Article 3 who intends to? Okay, John, proceed. And I would ask everyone to return to their seats. And I will momentarily interrupt deliberation over Article 3 while we await the results of the tabulation of the paper ballot to share with you the results of voting on Article 1 for moderator and Article 2 for members of the school board. Article 1, with a total of 342 ballots cast, 339 for Charles Niebling, 1 for Charlie Smith, 1 for Howard Pearl, and 1 for Mike Jetty, and Charles Niebling is elected moderator for the ensuing year. Article 2, School Board, 3-year term representing the town of Salisbury. Hold on, I got to tally up the total. Let's see, 12, 15. With a total of 415 ballots cast, Louise Andrus with 148 ballots, Julia Jones with 264 ballots, Ray Wilson with 2 ballots, and Celie Longnecker with 1 ballot. And Julia Jones is elected to the 3-year term from the town of Salisbury. With a total of 422 ballots cast for the 3-year term representing the town of Loudon. Howard Pearl Jr. with 177 ballots, Laura Vincent with 241 ballots, Mark Herman with 3 ballots, and David Richardson with 1 ballot, and Laura Richardson is elected to the 3-year term representing the town of Loudon. What did I say? Laura Vincent. Yeah, I think Laura Richardson is someone I went to high school with. Sorry, my apologies. And for the 3-year term representing the town of Webster, with a total of 337 ballots cast, Melissa Muzzy with 333 ballots, Kim Kenny with 2 ballots, Terry Cox with 1 ballot, and Charles Pearl with 1 ballot. And Melissa Muzzy is re-elected to the 3-year term representing the town of Webster. And congratulations to all candidates, and incumbent and challenger. And thank you everyone for running for elected office in the Merrimack Valley School District. Okay, I think the tabulation of the paper ballot on Article 3 is going to take a little bit of time, so I'm tempted to take up other articles. Well, John, how long do you think this will take? Okay, do you mind taking a 10-minute break and just enjoying some social time with your neighbors, or would you prefer that we proceed to other action on the warrant? Proceed? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. With the indulgence of the meeting, I'm going to move to Article 6. We're going to pass over Article 4 because there is some substantive presentation to make on Article 4. So with the indulgence of the meeting, I will move to Article 6. Article 6 is the Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund appropriation recommended by the school board. Is there a motion on Article 6? It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. And I will recognize Jessica Russell Wheeler, excuse me, to speak to Article 6.
Oh, there we go. Hello, good evening. Thank you very much.
And speak loudly and slowly, Jessica. I realize, yeah, thank you.
Sure. So, Article 6 reads as follows: to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to be deposited in the Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund for the purposes of maintaining school buildings and grounds, with said funds from the June 30th, 2024 unassigned fund balance available for transfers on July 1st. No additional amount to be raised from taxation. The school board recommends this article, and some information and background on this. In 1993, MVSD voters approved the establishment and funding of a Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund, or the MET. The express purpose of this fund is repairing and maintaining the school district's buildings and grounds. The district has worked hard to craft a proactive capital improvement plan, or CIP. This CIP is a valuable communication and planning tool and helps the district protect the investment represented by our buildings and grounds, an insured value of over $90 million. Feedback from the community indicates that rather than bringing larger capital expenses or projects to the voters through separate articles on the warrant, the district should save in anticipation of these future expenses. With that in mind, we are asking to reserve $150,000 from the end of year unassigned fund balance to be placed in the district's Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund. This money will be utilized to support the MVSD capital improvement plan as we prepare to address expected infrastructure and building needs throughout the district. A couple of other points. Money can only be added to the MET through voter approval at annual meeting. Money can be withdrawn from this fund only after a public hearing. At the public hearing, the board will provide information as to why money from the fund is being withdrawn. For example, to replace a roof at one of our schools. The board will listen to feedback from attendees, and then at a separate board meeting, the board will vote to take action. Some of the projects indicated in the CIP have the potential of offsetting expenses via competitive grants and/or some federal funding. For example, many security-related projects are often grant eligible. An MET fund provides the district the flexibility to respond to these grant opportunities. I now open the floor to feedback on Article 6. Thank you very much.
Questions or comments on Article 6? I recognize Lisa Laughlin.
Lisa Laughlin from Loudon. I have one question and then a comment. And my question is, we are confident that this money will be available in the fund balance? Because we've talked about there being...
I'll recognize Hillary or Fred? Who's speaking? Okay, Hillary.
Yes, we do expect that that money will be in the unassigned fund balance.
On the off chance that it's not, what happens?
No money would be transferred, or if what we had available would be transferred. So it would be up to 150,000 if we had 75,000 as an unassigned fund balance, which we wouldn't expect, but it would be 75,000 that would be transferred.
Okay. I made this comment in the budget hearing. I'm just going to repeat myself. I think it's important. I asked last year, because there was no money transferred last year, I asked and was told that it didn't need to be transferred. As a taxpayer, I would prefer that we transfer some every year, because I think this fund is important. I see the value of it, but the up and down of it is kind of frustrating. I would prefer that we try to keep as a consistent amount as possible that is necessary to meet the CIP. Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 6? There being none, there we go. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Jeff Blanchard from Salisbury. Just wanted to try to understand a little bit about how this relates to the revenue item of the $500,000. And there was just some question about if that's a moving target, how that works. And it says no additional amount will be raised from taxation, but my understanding is that if this $150,000 was not put into this fund, that it would go back to the taxpayers in addition to the $500,000, so there would be a $650,000 reimbursement to the taxpayers this year. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
So even though no taxation is being done, there's kind of a negative taxation being done, is that you're going to have to tax us for the additional $150,000 that you don't give back to us. Is that correct?
It would just go against tax rate setting for the following year.
Excuse me?
It would reduce what is returned to the taxpayers for when tax rate setting happens in the fall.
It would increase, excuse me, if it wasn't voted, it would increase what's going back to the taxpayers, which would then lower the taxation rate.
Sure, yes.
Okay, thank you. And what is the current fund balance of this fund that we're being asked to give $150,000 to?
We won't know that until June, but we expect it to be approximately after this $150,000, $500,000.
No, my apologies. I probably misspoke or wasn't clear.
Do you want to know the balance from last year?
The fund that we're going to put that we're being asked to put the additional
Are you looking at the
$150,000.
balance for the
What is the current
in the maintenance
balance of that?
expendable trust currently? The market value as of the end of January was $1,172,955.50.
Okay, so over $1 million. And what have we spent? Have we spent any of that money over the last 10 years since we started?
It's been a
establish that
few
fund?
years since we spent money from the fund, but we do expect, we have a roof coming up that will be about $360,000, and we have, and Fred could speak to these more, a track that will need to be replaced, and I think we're looking at $450,000 to $500,000. So that will reduce it down to about $200,000.
Now, replacement of the track, this is an absolute type of thing, or does that have to be, if this money is expended for that, it has to be approved by the taxpayers? Is that correct?
It would be brought up at a public hearing, and the board would either approve it or not approve it. The track was last done in 2005, and the problem with the track is that the top coat of the track, the orange part, is, if you will, delaminating.
Fred,
from
I
the
didn't
hot
ask
top.
any questions about the track. I asked about the process.
The process is there will be a public hearing before a board meeting at some future date.
Okay, and then who decides to spend the money? Is it the school board alone, or
The
is it
school
tax-
board, I would ask them for the money, and then
It doesn't have to come back to a public meeting and be voted on by the taxpayers?
it's a public hearing where the taxpayers have a chance.
But they do not vote on it?
No.
It's then voted on by the school board to take money out of that $1 million fund that we have?
Out of the maintenance expendable trust, yes.
Okay. And we haven't spent any money in the last 10 years, but we think we need another $150,000 in it now. Is that what I'm hearing?
I plan on spending $450,000 to replace the track. and replace the Pennacook Elementary roof, the shingled aspect of the roof. And that's going to be $359,750, and the track is going to be approximately $450,000. So that 1.19 million is going to be around 300,000.
Left after those expenditures.
Correct. And so I just want to tell you so everybody understands, I do the same thing every year, and I kind of enjoy standing up here and telling you about it because I'm very proud of what we do, and I'm very proud of your support. So this year, 23-24, what we've done is we replaced the Boscawen Elementary roof. In Loudon, using ESSA grant money, we replaced the 7 cabinet unit heaters in the 2001 edition, kindergarten edition, with a new energy recovery unit on the roof, and we added the library to that. That was approximately $900,000 that we got in through a grant. We also replaced every actuator at Loudon Elementary School, and an actuator is an electric shutoff valve. So picture a spigot on the side of your house outside.
Excuse me, Fred?
Yes, sir.
I don't think I asked about that, and that doesn't specifically relate to this article. This article has to do with the million.
Okay.
It doesn't have to
Fair
do with
enough.
the grants that you've got.
My apologies.
Okay,
I
thank
wanted to
you.
make sure that all the
Jeff,
people knew.
further question or comment on Article 6? Okay. Is there anyone at this mic? I'll recognize David Hemingway.
David Hemingway, Webster again. So part of his question was what I was asking, which was the current existing total in the fund. And the follow-up question that I normally ask at these, and Fred was starting to answer, I'll go ahead and try to phrase it in a way that will hopefully make sense here. Over the past 10 years, as the gentleman said, obviously there has not been a whole lot that has been spent out of the fund. However, I know that many of the items that we have fortunately gotten grants for, especially during pandemic times, are things that would have been funded out of that fund if we needed to. Can you provide some guidance beyond the next 2 things that you want to do this year of the next 3 or 4 projects that you believe would be in that high dollar mark? And then thank you for everything you've done.
So at the request of the town of Selectmen and town of Boscawen Selectmen, I'm expanding the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, from 5 years to 10. That should be ready in about a month, Randy? And as always, the Capital Improvement Plan, no matter whether it's here at the school district, in the town, or anywhere else, hi Dave Rice, how are you, buddy? John Rice, is very fluid. It can change. Something that I have 8 years out might break tomorrow, so that would come off the CIP. So in the next 10 years, Dave, is how I'm going to read this. In Boscawen, we're going to need to install an additional parking lot. We're going to convert all the LED to LED, all the interior lights, and we're going to add noise buffers in the cafeteria, some type of acoustic tiles. In Loudon, we're going to convert to LED interior lighting. We're going to replace the shingle roof on the 1861 library. We're going to replace the flat roofs, or the EPDM roofs. I want to replace the windows in the 54, 88, 90 editions. I want to update the HVAC in the 54, 88, 90 editions. And I'm going to replace the gray siding over the front of the building, the main entrance. At the high school, this year we're going to start renovating bathrooms. So instead of a gang bathroom, we're going to have individual rooms with the fixtures in them. And it's better supervision for the administration. We're going to do that at the high school and middle school. At the middle school, we are going to update the HVAC where needed, and we're going to replace the gray exterior siding on the front of the building. Pennacook, we're going to convert to LED interior lighting. And these LED conversion projects, they range from 140 to 180,000. There's about a 5 to 6 year payback, which are very good numbers for return of investments. And we're also this summer, we're replacing the shingled roof at Pennacook Elementary School. And I can tell you that we invited 5 people to bid. 4 companies did bid. We were expecting a price of about $550,000, and the low bid came in at $359,000. So giddy up to that. Salisbury, we're going to do some paving to connect existing paving to exterior doors around the building. In the next 10, again, this is a 10-year plan. We're going to renovate the boys and girls old gang bathrooms and replace ceilings in 2 classrooms. I'd like to install a generator, which will be, I'll apply for a 50% grant from Homeland Security, and we'll have to replace the roof on the 61 edition, 88 edition, and the gym. Webster replaced the roofs on the 56, 88, 2001, and the gym, not on the 2006 edition. And we want to replace the old masonite 8-inch siding. The Learning Center, we're currently doing a renovation study to see what's needed there and how we'll be able to fund that. We should get that back hopefully by right around the 1st of May. And we'll have we have to replace all the roofs on that. Those were last done in 2000 and 2001. Around the campus and district-wide, we want to install a fence around the maintenance barn area. We need to repair the chip plant roof. That's not a replacement, just a repair. Add additional cameras district-wide, mostly on the outside of school buildings. We need to replace the attic floor at the fire barn, which is where the maintenance department is. We're going to repave the fire barn parking lot. We have to replace the track, which is going to happen this summer. And we have to repair the concrete first floor at the fire barn. That's what I've got right now, Dave. Is that good? Because I can go on talking, man.
Well, I had a suggestion, Fred, and that is that perhaps it would be useful to include the CIP in the packet of information that is shared with voters every year at this meeting.
Sure. We'll do that starting next year as long as Randy says that's okay.
Further question or comment, David?
So I had asked for 3 to 5, but thank you for all of them.
That's not how I do it, sorry.
No, I love you, man. The question there since you're talking about CIP, and in order to wrap my head around the budgetary needs, for that 10-year CIP plan, roughly how much are you estimating that would cost?
Well, as I said before, the CIPs are very fluid.
And obviously it changes depending on markets.
If we were to do all of the HVAC work and everything else on this list, you're probably talking $10 million. So obviously that 10-year plan is going to go out further than that. But that's what's coming up. So the taxpayers can look at it and see this is what we've got coming.
So thank you. To that point and the other person's comment that we should be absolutely putting into this fund every year to avoid spikes in rates when large items have to come up, I would simply propose that be something the board is looking at going forward to stabilize the tax rates going forward.
Further question or comment on Article 6? Yes.
Mary Cousins from Loudon. I do have a question because I'm a little confused with what the gentleman was just talking about all the maintenance. Because doesn't some of the stuff that he was talking about come out of operation maintenance and ground maintenance and like LED lights? Doesn't that come out of this? Or I'm a little confused on that.
Fred?
So in the past,
I mean, one of them is $3,643,000, and you were talking about the LED lights, and then you were talking about HVAC, but you also said you got a grant for that. So I'm just trying to understand. We were talking about Article 6 of $150,000.
Yep.
If we want to allocate that money, where we already have $1 million something in the fund, the gentleman asked what foresaw that needed to be done, and you said 2 items, the track and a roof,
Yep.
that added up to about $800,000, so that would have left a surplus. And then you just went on a big, long talking about everything that needs to be fixed, and I don't understand why that's being talked about under this $150,000.
Because the $150,000 is added to the maintenance expendable trust.
Okay, but wait a minute. We already, of what you just explained needed to be done, what did those items come out of operation and maintenance?
So the building improvement and the site improvement is where I do a lot of the capital improvement plans, the lesser amounts. So I have if the budget passes, I'll have $275,000 in the building improvement, and I believe $175,000 in site improvement. And I will work on a lot of those CIP things that are going to be in the CIP, but also I have a lot of other things every day, every year
Yeah, and in the
in
budget,
in the operating budget.
and you're getting $3,643,000.
I'm not sure where you're seeing $3 million. now.
Item number 2620, operations and maintenance.
Yep.
So what is this money for if we need more money for something else?
This money right here is all of this.
Right.
So equipment, supplies and utilities, electric,
LED
gas bills.
lights?
No, LED lights would normally come out of repair and maintenance.
Right, that's right there.
Where possible, we pay that out of the electric line.
But you get $300 and something thousand for repairs and maintenance.
Yep.
So those items you were talking about isn't part of this $150,000 on Article 6.
The list that I just read is out of the maintenance expendable fund.
Right, and that's
Okay.
separate.
It's totally separate from that.
Right, that's separate from the $150,000.
We have $100 million in assets in this district.
Is that separate from the $150,000?
Yes.
Okay, so right now we're only trying to determine if we need $150,000 in this.
That is the
Expendable trust.
intent of Article 6.
Right, so I don't understand why we're talking, in the way I just so that I understand it, you want to know if we want to okay the $150,000, and the questions were asked of what items need to be done, a roof and a track added up to $800,000. Then you said there'd be a couple $100,000 left. So maybe this year we don't have to put that money in, because there's money to cover what you think needs to be done. All the other things he was talking
Let's not get
about
into
was-
a debate, Fred.
I'm not.
Just to
next
answer
10
the
years-
question.
In the next 10 years, we have $10 million worth of work to do. That $3.8 million is to run this school district for 1 year
Okay,
and to repair
Right.
whatever breaks.
right. So you got $3,643,000 for operation maintenance. You got $293,449 for ground maintenance. So I don't understand. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying I just don't understand why we need more money if.
That money that you're talking about is to run this school district for 1 year.
Right.
That
that's a
includes
lot of money.
salaries, utilities.
Yeah.
That's 1 year.
And it's in the budget.
Okay, I think you've made the point, and I think Fred has attempted to respond to your question. Is there anyone else at the head here would like to speak to the specifics of Article 6? Jessica?
Oh, hi. Yes,
Yeah,
I
there we
walked over
go.
here just to confuse you.
Okay.
So you really have to think of this as like a savings account. If you know your car in 5 years is going to need, well, like I'm equating, I'm trying to explain it in maybe a little bit less acronym terms and stuff like that. So when we say, expendable trust, you kind of think of it as like a savings account for future expenses over time. Because we have the roof and the track coming up. Obviously $150,000 is not going to cover that, but if you put in a little bit at a time, over time, it will save us money in the long run instead of having these huge spikes where we have to ask for more and more and more at certain intervals. So while the maintenance, was a 2620 function is, is what it costs to run the school over the course of a year. This is the separate one that we are using to invest in things that we know are coming to avoid difficulties in the budget later on, if that makes sense.
Further question or comment on Article 6? Bill?
I'll try to be brief, Charlie. The wording, no additional amount to be raised from taxation, is frankly a false statement. Perhaps maybe in the current financial year it is, but if we don't turn the money back as part of the unreserved fund balance, then it doesn't defray costs to next year's raising of additional taxes. So I don't have any other problems with it, just those words are bad, and I really frankly don't think they need to be in there. If we're gonna get $150,000, it's gonna cost us, period, and it'll cost us next year.
Okay. Further question or comment on Article 6? Yes. Jim?
Is this on? Yeah. So I'd like to address that. This comes up in every school district and town meeting. That is actually very technical language. The word raise in the warrant article has a specific meaning. It means, are you raising this money through taxation? So that's really intended to tell you that the money is not being raised through taxation. It doesn't say that it does not have a tax impact. I agree, it has a tax impact. It's not, if it's moved over to the expendable trust fund, it will not go back to offset tax rate setting. So it does have a tax impact, but it is not being raised through taxation. That language really needs to be in there for clarification, and it's recommended language from DRA.
Okay, thank you. Further question or comment on Article 6? The question has been moved. That's a non-debatable motion, requires a 2/3 majority. Does everyone understand the motion to move the question that's been made? If you're in favor of that, we cease debate on Article 6. If you're opposed, it's open to continued debate, but it does require a 2/3 majority vote. All in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion to move the question is adopted. So Article 6 has been moved and seconded, and the question is on the table for further consideration. No additional debate on Article 6. Is this a point of order? Of Article 6? We haven't voted on it yet. Yep. But you can do that afterwards if you choose. Just hang out. We'll see what happens. Okay, are you ready for the question on Article 6? If you're in favor of Article 6, you will vote yes. If you're opposed to Article 6, you will vote no. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the ayes have it, and Article 6 is adopted. Do you wish to move to restrict reconsideration?
Liam Jewell Pennicook, yes, I would like to move to restrict reconsideration on Article 6.
Okay, a motion has been made to restrict reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 6. Does everyone understand the question? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of restricting reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 6, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And that motion is adopted. Okay, I do have the results of the paper ballot vote on the motion to approve Article 3 as presented, with a total of 204 ballots cast, yes 124, no 80, and Article 3 is adopted. So we will proceed now, or return now to the regular order of articles on the warrant and proceed with action on Article 4. Point of order?
It's on now. I would like to move to restrict consideration of Article 3.
Motion has been made to restrict reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 3. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Oh, is there a second to the motion? Second. It's been seconded. All in favor of restricting reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 3, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion to restrict reconsideration is adopted. So we'll get back to our previous order and proceed to action on Article 4.
I have an answer to Teresa's question.
Okay,
from previously.
Why don't you respond to that now before we get going on Article 4?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a total of 617 Loudon residents as of the 10/1 date of this year.
Okay. Okay, Article 4 is the Merrimack Valley Administrators Association Collective Bargaining Agreement recommended by the school board. Do I have a motion on Article 4? It's been moved by Sally Hirsch Dickinson. Is there a second on the motion? Tracy Bricky. And I now recognize Sally Hirsch Dickinson to speak to Article 4.
Good evening, and thanks for being here and participating in this process with us this evening. Article 4 reads as follows: to see if the school district will approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Valley School Board and the Merrimack Valley Administrators Association, which calls for the following estimated increases in salaries and benefits. For 2024 to 2025, $0. For 2025 to 2026, $40,377. For 2026 to 2027, $44,180. The school board recommends this article. The Merrimack Valley School Board and Merrimack Valley Administrators Association have collaborated to bring forward a collectively bargained agreement, or CBA, to MV voters. The MVSD and all schools exist in an increasingly competitive and changing marketplace for educational professionals. Principals set the tone for the school culture, promoting values such as inclusivity, respect, and academic integrity. By supporting teachers and staff, they enhance the quality of education and address the diverse needs of students. Their leadership and vision are crucial in shaping the educational experiences and outcomes for students, making them instrumental in the development of future generations. In order to attract and retain high-quality administrators, we need to be competitive with the current marketplace. We're hopeful that along with the great working environment in our schools and supportive communities, this agreement will indeed allow the district to attract and retain talented, innovative, and caring administrators. Some details about the CBA. This is a 3-year agreement. The new salary schedule has been realigned to clearly reflect the experience and educational attainment of all professional staff. In the first year, there will be an increase of up to 5.01%, followed by 2.39% in the second year and 2.57% in the third year. Due to the transition of the Director of Student Services to an SAU level position, the first year of the CBA reflects no additional money to be raised. As a result, the warrant article reads 2024 to 2025, $0. 2025 to 2026, $40,377, and 2026 to 2027, $44,180. I now open the floor to feedback on Article 4. Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments on Article 4? Mr. Jetty.
Thank you. Mike Jetty Webster. So I'm going to ask the same questions that I asked at the budget hearing, just so everybody can hear this. And Sally, I'm hoping you can answer questions just regarding the dollar amounts that we're looking at. And everybody here has to understand, I'm like the former president of the association, so I do have some knowledge of the way it's operated in the past. This is not in any way disparaging to our administrators. We should be paying them more. We need to have competitive salaries. I get that. To me, this is just understanding and the transparency of it. So when I look at the 24-25 estimated costs, we're saying $0, but you have moved, or the association has agreed to move one administrator out of that unit, correct?
That's correct.
And what was the cost savings for that one administrator?
$117,825.
And so is it a fair assumption that that 117,000 is now being redistributed among everybody else in the unit?
No, that is incorrect. We couldn't put less than $0. That money, you see the savings in the actual budget, but as far as this goes, once that person's removed from the MVAA, we're basing the next year's numbers on the remaining people in that collective bargaining unit.
Thanks for clarifying that, because, but then are you saying that we're not giving any raises to our administrators next year?
No, part of that 117, so I, don't have the calculations, but let's say that out of that, it's 50,000. That means that 67,000 is going as savings elsewhere with the shifting of that position, and the 50,000 is divvied up among the remaining folks in that unit.
So people are seeing an increase this year?
They are. As Sally read, it's around 5%.
A 5% increase?
Correct.
All right. So I asked the board about this because I know that I have asked for, and other people in the room have asked to see the tentative agreement so that we can review what was negotiated. But we've been told that we're not privy to that. The tentative agreement of a collectively bargained agreement has not been released on request. That's frustrating to me, and I think it's actually a violation of 91A. I'm pretty sure that we have the right to ask for those documents and to be able to review those. And it worries me because, kind of the other theme tonight is people are asking questions about the Andover agreement. It's like turning into a real trust thing, and it shouldn't be. It should be, Mike, here's the agreement. This is how it's going to go. This is where the 5% goes, and I should be able to look at that. And I asked the board, what we were told at the hearing is that the board voted on the tentative agreement without reviewing it. This is how we get into situations where contracts are not known because they're not being shared with the board members who are voting to approve those. Randy, are you going to correct me on this?
No, I'll just point out that the board was given all of the changes to the agreement as, Sally was reading through that. So although there wasn't a draft document that you're referring to, there was all of the changes from the current agreement to the hopeful agreement starting next year.
That's a great clarification, Randy, because that's not what was said. And that's not what I heard at the public hearing, because I heard that it was not something that was shared with the board. And that when I looked at the minutes for that, the board had gone into non-public under clauses, I think it was B and C. Neither of those allows you to discuss a collective bargaining agreement. They're not, in my opinion, and legal can weigh in on this, there was nobody's reputation on the line, and you weren't hiring anybody. So the idea that you were in non-public discussing a collective bargaining agreement under those carve-outs of the law, it's not transparent, and there's no reason to be conducting business like that. And this is how we end up in situations where it's like, what is it, guys? Why can we not see what the collective bargaining agreement is? It's a public document that you can look at. The current one. It's posted on PELRB's website. We should be able to examine exactly what the agreement is and be able to compare that and know when you're telling us 0, can I verify that it's 0? I can't right now because you won't give it to me and you won't give it to the public. And this has got to stop. You've got to start being more transparent and sharing information when public asks for it.
Thank you for your feedback.
But here's what's going to happen, Randy. We're here tonight. We've got a small crowd. You're going to be able to continue operating like this because overall, there's not a pushback from the taxpayers and the public. And so you look at the budget, You know, we've got 415 ballots that were cast today, 204 people in the room that voted on Article 3. This is out of, you know, 10,000, over 10,000 potential voters in the district. I mean, there's a lack of, or there's apathy really toward all of this. And when people are asking to get stonewalled on it, it's very, very frustrating. And what I'm afraid of is that you guys are going to get yourselves into a situation where a different crowd turns out sometime and is just asking for information. And, you know, a vote on something like the budget could go south because you're not sharing, and it's too bad. So please, consider being more transparent, getting documents out there. Don't hide under something that doesn't apply. The carve-outs that are in 91A do not apply to this, and we should be able to examine those documents.
Okay. Further question or comment on Article 4? Bill.
I had written, but he stole most of my thoughts here. The one point that I would add or to say, because I was one of the other ones that asked for that document twice. First, and then I pushed back with what I thought the law said, and I still didn't get it. And my question is, what are you hiding?
Okay. Further question or comment? Any? Okay. Further question or comment on Article 4? Yes, sir.
Liam Jewell, Pennacook. Can I just hear from legal counsel on this? Because, you know, as just bystander citizens, I'm not fully understanding.
Hey there. I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm not like going to speak precisely what happened, but there's an alternative narrative here. First of all, I think everyone who participates in collective bargaining in the public sector knows that under 91A2, that all happens as a non-meeting. It's not a non-public meeting. Those meetings aren't posted. So the conversations between the board and the superintendent about collective bargaining negotiations are private. They can be as secretive as the board chooses to make those meetings. The conversation between the administration and the board about what the tentatively agreed upon terms of that collective bargaining agreement is a conversation that happened as a non-meeting. It is allowed under the law. When the board came into public session and they voted to ratify those terms, that happened in public. So from my point of view, that aspect of the procedure was compliant with the law. It's not how every community does it, but it's not a violation of the law. There's a presumption here that there was a document. Often I do collective bargaining agreement. Oftentimes in complicated contract negotiations, I'll prepare a tentative agreement document that lists all of the changes to the contract. Sometimes I even have a draft collective bargaining agreement that I'll hand to the superintendent and he'll present to she will present to the board during that non-meeting to get it ratified. That's not always how it works. And I would suggest to you, because I have a lot of people in my office that do that, for a lot of years, that level of formality never took place. It's a matter of sharing with the board what the terms are and the board agreeing. And then later, after you folks vote and hopefully accept the contract, the new contract is put together, shared with the union. Everybody looks at it and makes sure it looks right. They sign it and execute. That's the final agreement that gets posted publicly. Is there space for more transparency? Is there a different process that could be implemented in the future? Of course. But I don't see anything in violation of the law here.
Thank you. Yeah, I think personally my trust in the board remains. Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 4?
So I'd just like to comment.
Hold on a sec. Anyone who wishes to speak on Article 4 for the first time? Yes, sir.
Scott McPherson, Pennacook. Can I move the question?
I will recognize Mr. Jetty to speak because he was at the mic, but then I will recognize a motion to move the question. Mr. Jetty.
Yeah, so I'd just like to respond to Attorney O'Shaughnessy's comment. So I've been around collective bargaining a long time also, and have been met with different legal counsel who have different viewpoints on this. Jim, I totally understand the non-meeting concept. I totally understand the board's ability to consult on this, but I have never heard of an agreement that isn't reduced to writing. There's no way that tentative agreement is not written down and initialed as to what's going to change in there, and that document is a public document once the board has approved it, and it should be released upon request. That's all that we've asked for. So this idea that because we haven't typed up the CBA yet to send off as the final signed agreement, because that will occur after the vote tonight and after this is approved, then you'll prepare that document and it'll be finalized and signed. But there is a TA where this is written down. It cannot be a verbal handshake. It's got to be something that has been reduced in writing, and that's what's being asked for. I will also tell you that, council that I've met with has said that you must disclose that, and the vote must be in public, which I think you did do it in public. I think you were in non-public, but then you came back into public session. But still, at that point, that document should be disclosed. So can I just, Jim, are you willing to answer that question? Do you feel that, is there a written tentative agreement, and should that be disclosed to the public?
First of all, I have several labor employment lawyers in my office, and the largest labor practice in northern New England. A lot of times it happens verbally. A lot of times it's never reduced to a tentative agreement. The law does not require a tentative agreement. It arguably is a common practice. I know who your legal counsel is. It's a good practice. It's one I often use. It's not required by the law. My understanding here, and if there isn't a document, then there's nothing to share. The board does not have to create a tentative agreement because the community asks for one. They can, they don't have to. And my understanding is that there is not a tentative agreement document. There is not a draft CBA document in existence. That's my understanding, and that's why there was none provided.
Excuse me, point of order. I've called the question, and I believe the speaker has been going on for more than 3 minutes.
Do you have anything further new information to add, Mike?
I do, because I'm back to, I think we're splitting hairs. I recognize that the CBA, the draft CBA, based upon the changes, hasn't been prepared. I'm acknowledging that. You keep, Jim, you're saying you believe. Is there, it's a simple question, is there a written agreement with the president of the association and the lead negotiator's initials on it that says we agreed to this? Or is this all verbal? Because we're talking about a 3-year deal with a lot of money attached to it, and it sounds like it's a verbal agreement at this point.
I don't think it's necessarily a verbal agreement, but I don't believe I have been told there is no tentative agreement document. That's the answer. I don't have a different answer.
Okay,
so
so
I'm sorry I'm
it's not-
saying I believe.
Mike, I'm going to cut you off.
Yep, that's fine.
And I am going to recognize the motion to move the question. Is there a second to that motion? It's been seconded. It's non-debatable. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of moving the question on Article 4, please say aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion to move the question is adopted. So we now move to the adoption of Article 4 as presented. Are you ready for the question? Oh, I'm sorry. I have a request for a secret ballot on this. Apologies. I will recognize that request. It was made to me earlier by the same 8 individuals who made the request for a secret ballot on Article 3. Are all of those 8 individuals still present in the meeting? Are 5 of the 8? Can you all please stand? You know who you are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Do we have 5? Yes. Jacob Martin, Daniel Martin, William Hines, Catherine Phelps, Kirsten O'Brien, Kate Merrill, Cynthia Merrill, and Dustin Bowles. So we have 5? Okay. I will recognize that motion for a secret ballot. It is in order. On Article 4. So we will proceed. David, what color paper are we using? Yellow. We'll start with Section 1 to proceed to voting on Article 4. Let's go to section 2. Yeah. Sure.
So we voted on with this link.
Yeah.
We voted on the actual printed things.
Correct. Except for Article 5, but we'll pass over Article 5.
We have to.
Because it's moved. Yeah. If Article 4 is adopted. Yeah.
Under Article 7.
Yeah.
Are you under consideration of Article 3?
Yeah.
They can just come out. They can't do anything.
Pretty much. They, sometimes people have asked for a sense of the meeting. People have asked for a straw vote, but they're non-binding. They're not going to change anything. The board can choose to take whatever input they receive under advisement, or they can choose to ignore it. Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sorry that you can't.
No, that's okay. And I will Okay, section 3.
That balloon is very quickly evaporating. I'm actually having over to see my husband real quick. Yeah, that's right. And I can go vote now.
So I need to swear you in. Yeah. So this will take. It won't take very long to count once everyone finishes voting. Pretty much. Then we move to Article 7, which is the catch-all for anything else. You don't have to stick around. Yeah. I think we probably should be wrapped up by then. Article 7 is anything else that is non-binding. And if you don't get sworn in tonight, just come into the district office some other time. I live in Boston. I can come in and swear you in. Yeah. Oh, a board. Oh, I've done that in the past. I've come to the next board meeting and sworn people in.
Give it 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because then I gotta then bring it.
Sure. Understood. Okay, well,
Like, don't please, you gotta get sworn in. I'm like,
I'm doing the best I can to keep things moving along. Yep. All right, let's go to section 4, the left side of the bleachers. And there aren't too many people in section 5, so why don't we open up section 5 as well? The school board can vote now as well. All right, is everyone in line who intends to vote on Article 4? If you haven't, please proceed. Okay, has everyone voted on Article 4 who intends to? All right. John, I think we're all set. And our intrepid counters moved very quickly with the paper ballot on Article 3. So I think what we will do, because the only other article for action on the warrant is the catch-all article, Article 7. I think we'll wait about 5 minutes for the results of the ballot vote on Article 4 to be tabulated. So feel free to mill about, get a drink, go to the bathroom, and we will probably reconvene here in another 5 to 7 minutes. All right, everyone, I think we have the results of the paper ballot on Article 4. Thank you, John. Thank you, counters. And 175. Okay. Article 4, total of 175 ballots cast. Yes, 121, no, 54, and Article 4 is adopted. Article 5 is a contingent article only necessary in the event that Article 4 was defeated. And with the consent of the meeting, I'm going to pass over Article 5. Is there any objection? It can't be. Okay. We now move to Article 7. Article 7 is any other business that may legally come before the meeting. Is there anyone who would like to raise any questions or issues under Article 7? Yes, sir.
Yep. Dave Collins, Webster, New Hampshire. Sorry, I don't want to blow your eardrums out. So this is actually the first time I've come to the Merrimack Valley meeting in several years. I always had commitments. I always come here and vote for the elections, because particularly to the school board members, I'm coming because you're our voice. So tonight, I got to be honest with you. If I'm a school board member and I'm leaving this meeting tonight, I'll be honest with you, you should be very concerned. And why you should be concerned is this, is you have a large budget, and there is no doubt in my mind that you take a tremendous amount of time and effort to work on that budget and make sure you're doing the best that you can for the community. The school budget, I always love schools. We literally had a little over 200 people here show up here tonight. To Mr. Jetty's point, there's probably about 10,000 people live in the school district. And I'll be honest with you, they're making the decisions of what's going on. When I look at your vote, by just a margin of 44 votes, your budget passed. Those 80 people, if next year they decide to bring one or two of their friends, they're going to vote your budget down. And I don't think that's what any of us want, because to start with that, we're going to spend all night, go meeting after meeting, and just browbeat people into that. But what I'm also hearing is this, which is very concerning for me. There seems to be on contractual issues, on those issues where the board needs to demand transparency. You are our voice. We have a very limited voice. We come here at these meetings and questions are raised. And it's always an education to come to any school or town meeting. And there were things raised tonight that are very concerning to me as a taxpayer, because it impacts my taxes. And let's be honest with you, we're in challenging economic times. The dollars are not stretched for what they are. Now, I can tell you, when I'm looking at your budget, I'm in the insurance business, so when I see those health insurance costs go up, I completely understand. Very frustrating, but you bargained an agreement with your employees, and we obviously owe them something, and that's fair. But on those other issues that have been raised tonight, and I hear from the administration, I hear what appears to me as a taxpayer a lack of transparency. That has to change. So I'm gonna ask something you, the school board members that are continuing. It is time that you be our voice on every meeting. I'm not gonna come and attend every one of your meetings. I'll be honest with you, I don't have that type of time. That's what I vote you in for. You need to start demanding transparency of your administration, and you need to be providing it to us as the taxpayers. Why? Because again, these budgets have gone up over the years, and death and taxes, they always say, is gonna go up. We know that. I've been coming to these meetings. I've lived in Webster for 17 years. I've been coming to them, probably going back in that range. And I will tell you, the budget's gone up a lot. But again, I know costs go up. I understand that. And I appreciate the fact that I really think this year, I like the way you laid it out in the budget, kind of going through what the items are. But by just 44 votes you did. And I'm going to tell you something. Those people voting against it, it's not the fact that they know costs. It's always challenging. It's the fact that I'm hearing things of a lack of transparency. It is time for the board to start doing that. You need to listen to these individuals that spoke tonight on those items, and you need to start providing feedback on that. And you need to be prepared to do that. And again, there are certain things, understand, that are privy things that you can't. When it comes to things like collective bargaining agreements, when it comes to saying tuitioning other towns, I got to be honest with you. I'm sitting here listening to the whole Andover discussion tonight. And the fact that literally we're charging them 90% of our rate, holy Moses. So you're telling me that as a Webster taxpayer, I'm funding Andover students to come here. Now, I know there's a reason you do that, but I got to be honest with you. I can understand why there were questions about that. That is very concerning as a taxpayer. So again, and the reason a lot of questions here is, there are a lot of questions going back, and I'm sitting there listening to all of them. It's frustrating. So you're saying, oh, what a disgruntled taxpayer. No, I want to end this. I support what you do in Merrimack Valley School District. I think you do a great job for the residents. I think you work very hard as a board, administration, and the teachers. Please don't think I'm cutting you down. All I'm simply asking for is listen to these voices tonight talking about things that were not as transparent. Board members, you need to make an effort to be more transparent, because if all these people get their friends next year, the 200 people of a 10,000 school district could vote your budget down. And what are you going to do then? You got to go back to the table. What's going to be cut? What do we cut? I'm going to tell you something. Though you're cutting your budget anyways to begin with, imagine what those discussions are going to be if they come in and cut your budget by $10 million, right? What are you going to do? So again, you're doing a good job. I appreciate what you do, but please listen to what these people are saying tonight. You need to be more transparent going forward, and you need to start being concerned about what the taxpayers are, because again, it's a large burden. I watch my taxes over the course of 17 years in Webster double. The problem is, though, when people go and they see their taxes go up, where do they go? They go to the town meeting. I bet you I can go to every town meeting in this school district, and I'm going to bet you there's, in Webster, you probably have that many people at town meeting. What at school meeting, nobody shows up. That's where the big money is. That's what has a big impact on the tax rate. Now, to a certain point, I'll leave with this, and I'll end my point, is that, a lot of people, I think, again, they have faith in the board. That's why they're not here. But the problem is the people that are here every year, because I see similar faces here every year, they're the ones that are asking the questions. You need to answer those questions and be prepared to do that. I hope you take that home tonight, and I hope next year when I come to the meeting, I hear much more. I don't hear those questions. You've addressed those before, and it's simple points on the topic. With that, thank you for all you've done to the board members, the administration, the teachers. Thank you for your hard work. The taxpayers do truly appreciate it. We're not trying to give you a hard time. I think we're just trying to make sure that our dollars are used wisely, because again, it's hard to earn those dollars. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Further question or issue or item under Article 7?
Mr. Moderator, I would like to move to restrict consideration of Article 4.
Fair enough. I will recognize that motion, although proper protocol, Lisa, is to raise that motion before action on a subsequent article. You were? I didn't see you. That's when you yell from the floor, point of order, okay? If I don't see you, and if I don't know you're there, and I apologize for that, but I will recognize that motion. The motion is to restrict reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 4. Is there a second to the motion? It's been sufficiently seconded. Is there any question on the motion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of restricting reconsideration of the affirmative vote on Article 4, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, and the motion is adopted. Further question or comment under Article 7?
Carissa Coro Pennacook. I just have some really clear feedback about transparency. When I looked at the total decreases of $250,000, I was like, all right, good job. But actually, it's not that much. And so I would have preferred you to just show that you moved something and made that clear, because it's not clear. If I were to look at this in 10 years, if someone were to pick up this document, it would look like you did a pretty good job when actually just moved some things around. And I appreciate the move and to be more transparent. Similar to the administrator contract, I think that zero amount is misleading, and I think that should be more clear. And to just note on contracts, we are voting on we get to vote on a number, like how much it costs to pay folks more, but we're not getting to see the other things that go into a contract. And I think that's important for us to look at. I consider, like Franklin, I'll give an example. Those teachers went to Franklin, the city council, and they had their bargaining agreement in the city council line by line questioned at their public meeting before they passed it. I think we should do something similar here, because there's working conditions that are important for us to know what our teachers and our para-support professionals are getting in working conditions. It's not just about pay, it's about culture. And last, Can I have the superintendent's salary for this year and then the superintendent's salary for next year?
This current year,
This current year?
155,000,
And can I have the anticipated salary for next year?
165,000.
And is that including any bonuses?
No, the bonuses for the current year were 6,000 for longevity and $10,000 signing bonus. So for next year, 165,000 with a $7,000 longevity bonus. So essentially a $1,000 increase going into next year.
Thank you.
Further question or comment on Article 7? David?
Dave Hemingway Webster. I want to hopefully end all of my comments with a wonderful positive note. It was fabulous to see our students step up and do the music at the start to open us up. I absolutely applaud those students for doing that and for anyone that assisted them in getting that done. Music and the arts are important, and seeing that that is thriving here is wonderful. Thank you.
Further question or comment on our Article 7?
Julie Nudd Webster. I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
A motion is made to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second to the motion? It's been seconded. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you for coming. Newly elected school board members, please stick around so that I can swear you in and you can sign your oath. And Julia, you're still here, so come this way.